welcome everybody. Glad to have you with us for another Monday Masterclass. I'm here with Scott Burleson, and as we do, as is our nature, we'll take the first 30 minutes or so and cover a topic that we think we'd like to talk about. And of course, we want you to jump in and ask questions and make comments, and there'll be plenty of rebuttal time for you as well. And after the first 30 minutes, anything you want to talk about is fair game. And we'll keep the recording going, so if anybody finds that useful later, they'll have that. Today, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to see if I can stop that music, Scott. There we go.
I was debating whether to mention that or not.
Yeah, lovely though it is. We'll get this opened up here. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about special situations for when we're interviewing customers. Let me read off the list of what you and I put together so far. And for the folks who've joined us, listen to this list, and if you could think of some special situations that you've run into that we haven't covered here, we'll have a stump the chump section here at the end, and you can ask us, and we'll see if we've had some experience maybe in some other special situations. But here are the 6 or 7 that we've put together. One is you've already been meeting with the customer, and you got a great relationship. They've been telling you what their needs are. All of a sudden, hey, we want to do a discovery interview. And they're thinking, what are we, like, weren't you listening to us last year? Or what's the deal here? That's a special situation. Another one, oh, you're our supplier? You're coming in? Oh, great. What are you going to present to us on? Because that's what you do when you come in as a supplier. You make presentations at us, right? Yeah, but we want to do a discovery interview. How do you handle that? Another one, you're at a trade show, and you want to use that venue for interviewing. What do you do differently? Or maybe there's multiple customers that you're interviewing at the same time. That does not work in some industries, fierce competitors, but in other industries it does, and we'll talk about that. A 5th one, you want to be able to conduct interviews in another language. How do you do that? And then what if there is no conference room? Now those first 6, we've all got a Blue Help article on those. We're going to dive in fairly briefly and cover them. And then, of course, you ask questions as you have them. And then we have another one. There's no Blue Help article, but this is what if you're doing, like an innovation day for many customers at your place, or if you're just having one customer come to your place, if you have an innovation center. What do you do if they're coming to your place? Because, in all these special situations, our core training is we're going to go, we'll do an interview with the customer in a conference room. Everything is nice and neat. That happens a lot of times, but these other situations come up. I think that covers it pretty well, doesn't it, Scott? I think we've got most of those that we have talked about.
I think so. And again, it'll be interesting to hear what others that folks have in mind as well.
We'll see what there's some new ones here. And feel free to stop us as we go at any point in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I'm in the Blueprinting Center, your one-stop shop for everything. I'm going to hit that big Blue Help button here, and we'll see how good our search engine is. And by the way, we love it when you come and try, and if something doesn't work, let us know. We'll beef this up. But this is a third-party search engine, and Scott and I are like, whoa, these guys are good. So far, it seems like it's pretty powerful. So the first one we wanted to talk about, you've already been having some customer meetings. In fact, I'm going to do it this way. We talk about special cases. So here we go. You've already been meeting with this customer. Let's go ahead and click on that. And we'll just do a high-level flyover on most of these. And you can come back and you can look at these in more detail. And if you're curious, we're on discovery interviews. It's one of the articles underneath there. So here's the deal. You've been having great meetings with this customer for some time. They've been telling you their needs. All of a sudden you say, we want to do a discovery interview. And they're thinking, well, is that kind of odd? Because weren't you paying attention, at these earlier meetings? Here's what you do. You, internally, before you meet with the customer, you get your discovery noteboard out for that customer, create a brand new one, and you start loading it up with everything you and your salespeople and tech support people have been listening to for the last year or two. And you put them down here in the form of outcomes. And you get them as much as you can get there, okay? Then when you request the interview, say, we want to just review what we've been hearing to make sure we got it right. And we have a few questions about some things we've been hearing from you in the past. Now, during the interview, You show them these notes, you get them up there, and you do ask some clarification questions. Well, Dan, what if we don't have any questions? Have some questions, okay? This is how you want to kind of lubricate the beginning of it. You might even skip your current state questions, frankly, and just dive right in and say, you know, here are the 12 things we heard over the last year. We got some questions on note number 4, and number 7, and note number 9. And then you ask some questions. Then you get into your probing, the what and why. Then you say, now, what haven't we talked about yet? Are there any other problems? And boom, you are in a discovery interview. And you move on from problems to ideal state, to triggered ideas, and so forth. You get your top picks. And then you say, you didn't really get a chance earlier to clarify these outcomes. So now you go to your outcome statements. So you check on some things, make sure you got it right, you add more outcomes, and you really nail those outcome statements tightly on this. And then finally, this is a great time to schedule your preference interview. Say, we need more help prioritizing. Could you help us out with that? And then that's when you do it, and schedule it right there before you leave. All right, I'm just gonna take a real quick pause. Any questions on that first one? You've already been meeting with the customer? All right, let's go on to number 2. And I'm gonna click here, and you can see that I'm in this section here of convincing customers. We just had the special case here. Here's another special case. The customer says, oh, good, Mr. Supplier. You're coming in here to meet with us? That means you're gonna make a presentation to us, right? And you're thinking, well, I really wanted to do a discovery interview, okay? And so this happens a lot in many industries. The customers have been kind of trained to expect a technical presentation, especially if a technical person is coming into the room. And so they might feel if you're coming in, you're gonna do this. And they might even feel, well, it's kind of one way, you know, if we're just telling you stuff and you're not telling us anything. Of course, it's not one way. This is gonna be a two-way effort. It's just that your effort comes after the first meeting, right? You know, you're gonna return with innovation and talk about that later. You're just breaking it up into, first tell me your needs, later I'll come back and make a presentation on what we can do. Now, still, given all that, it's still sometimes better just to go with the flow. Like, okay, you want me to make a presentation? Great, I'll make a presentation. So what do? We call this the Part A, Part B meeting. One session, could be A, could be B, is where you do make a presentation of something of interest to them, like a technology overview. There, that guy's, I don't have no idea what that technology is, but it looks pretty darn impressive. And then the other part is the discovery meeting, okay? And it's wise to have a little separation between these if you can, a little bio break or something. Don't mingle the two together. Then you start, it's not good. You get solutions mixed in and everything else. Now, if they will let you, do the discovery interview first. Say, we don't want to taint your views, you know, when you're telling us what your needs are by having kind of primed you with our thoughts. So if they'll let you do the discovery interview, but don't get too worked up over it. You can make this work either way. Now, be a little bit careful about the topics you choose in your presentation. It could be a technology overview. Those go over really big. My advice is keep it high level. You don't want to get into solutions or cool new ideas or look what we did here and here's my prototype. That's for later. So keep it more about technology possibilities, not product solutions, okay? Another one that's very helpful is future trends. So here you could say, let's talk about the future together so we know where you're going. And in fact, let me open this up. Future Scenes is one of the tools that we have that's available to you. It's in at theaiminstitute.com. It's under Growth Tools, Future Scenes. These are free downloads that you can get. And there are like 16 of these future scenes that you could go over with them. I think there's a bunch down here. You can look at these if you're interested. Whole bunch of future scenes, and that might be a really fun thing to pull a few key ones out and make a presentation on. So that, in fact, we have one client, she actually went and had her whole department trained by a futurist down in the University of Houston. And they would go in and they'd start off these meetings with the future presentation, and then they'd go into discovery interview. Customers absolutely loved it. So that's something you can do. Another one, market research. Maybe you purchase some secondary research and pull this all together. Things you've gleaned from purchasing things, or maybe interviews at GLG experts, and you present this. You know, we had a client who wanted to interview Apple Computer a few years ago. Well, good luck. Everybody wanted to interview Apple Computer. So they actually they contracted and had some consumer research done. They said, can we bring in our consumer research, and then can we hear from you what your needs are? Great, come on, bring it on. So those are some of the ways you handle this. You know, it's funny, this particular one, maybe it's just bad data gathering on my part, but when we do work in Germany, we get a lot of our clients in Germany saying, but the customer's expecting a presentation, because they're so good at technology and so forth. So this comes up a lot in those cases. But you may have seen it as well. Let me pause again. I'll take a quick sip of my coffee, and you see if you've got any questions before I go on to number 3. Everybody good so far? So here's the third one. How do you conduct interviews at trade shows? So once again, it's pretty easy. Just go here. Let's type in trade shows. There we go. How to conduct interviews at trade shows. So let's take a look at what might be a little bit different with these. So you need to have a place to do it. Now, some of you, when you go to trade shows, you've got these big monster booths that you can drive a truck through, and they got private conference rooms, but many of you don't. So what you want to do, if you're at a conference center or a hotel, you can almost always reserve a conference room, or I like to get a hospitality suite. Now, if you do this, a few tips. Schedule early. Most of these trade show attendees, they fill up their dance cards really early with all these different events. So get a schedule. Maybe you have 2 1.5-hour blocks in the morning and the same in the afternoon, and then just start scheduling it. And do this well before the trade show begins. This is where you really want to bring in lots of really good food. And so imagine this, you're talking to somebody and saying, you know what, these trade shows can really wear you down, right? You're walking around with that little silly plastic bag lugging stuff, you know. But how about some really comfortable chairs and some amazing hot hors d'oeuvres waiting for you while we try to understand your needs better. Now, in some industries, it's perfectly acceptable to hand out incentives. That can be a very effective way of doing this. It can, by the way, be even if you're not doing a trade show, you can do this sometimes. Depends upon your industry here. Okay. You also might say this: for those who participate, we'll be giving the results of our industry research later. At a minimum, you're going to share the 10 outcomes in preference interviews, right? So that's happening. We've also got the ability to well, some of our clients have made full market research reports, nice glossy brochures, and handed them out. That's something we're going to post pretty soon, isn't it, Scott? In fact, don't we have with Kelly a Monday Masterclass coming up on that later this year?
We do. I want to say November 9th, but it's the first one in November.
Keep your eye out for that one. This is a really cool thing. Kelly is one of my star blueprinting students when she was at a client of ours years ago. And she just blew me away. She would go out and gather discovery interview information and preference and combine it with secondary research, put together these beautiful, narrow focus market segment research reports that nobody else had. And she would show those to customers, and that would be the inducement, so they would get the next one. So that's another Monday Masterclass, but that can tie in here. So questions at trade shows. Anybody have any questions on running those? All right. Now the next one, by the way, there's more in here on trade shows. We will write down here how to interview at trade shows. And there's also how to use them to set up interviews. And actually this next one, I was going to type in multiple interview, multiple customers. And that is actually in this same section right here. Let's go there. So this could be at a trade show, but it doesn't have to always be at a trade show. But it's more common at a trade show that you've got several people in that hospitality suite that you're interviewing. They do not work for the same company. Or let's say we had a case once where we want to interview nurses. And, you know, hospitals don't compete with each other. So it's okay to have several, you know, nurses from different hospitals. So you'll have to judge if this is your industry. If you're served in the automotive industry and you want to try to get the Honda, GM, Ford, and Chrysler engineers in the same room and find out their needs, let me know how that works for you. I'm guessing maybe not too good. Fierce competition. Or hey, let's get Boeing and Airbus in the same room. But if you're interviewing nurses, tradespeople, carpenters, people who do auto body refinishing, maybe not even your direct customers, but your customers' customers. What you find is the competition gets less fierce and it gets more fragmented. There may be thousands or tens of thousands of these people. So if that's the case for your interviews, either your direct or maybe your customers' customers, trade shows are a great place to gather them. Or if you maybe get a hotel room and you invite several auto body shops, get their refinishers to come over. Now to do that, that's where you probably will want to have some incentive. You know, you may give them $100 or $150 Visa gift card to come. May do hand out a door prize, hand out some, you know, a special air sprayer, paint sprayer for the auto body refinish guys, whatever. Now, once you get them in there though, you've got different companies being represented. Okay, so there's something a little bit different about this. How are we going to handle this? So it's the interview looks a lot the same because you're just adding outcomes when it comes to discovery interviews. So you don't care if somebody representing hospital A has this outcome and somebody representing hospital B has a different outcome. It's more of this additive process with discovery. However, with preference interview, it's different. If you are interviewing just Honda Motor Company and they have different points of view between engineering and marketing and operations, well, guess what? They're only going to buy one type of product like yours. The engineering guys aren't going to have their own actuator, and the marketing guys have their actuator. They're going to buy one actuator. So you have to force them to resolve their decision. And so you say, from the standpoint of your whole company, how important is this on a scale of 1 to 10? How satisfied? So that's what you do if it's a single company. Now, if you're interviewing multiple company representatives, then what you do is you don't want to get one single rating, okay? So what I like to do is hand out some sheets, and we don't have these. Someday, Scott, will have to have a printout for these sheets. But you hand out sheets where it has the 10 outcomes on them, and it's got a 1 to 10 place to score it, and you ask them to individually record their importance and satisfaction. Now, what I like to do is say, how important is it to, minimize the operating temperature, yada, yada, whatever it is. And then I'll ask how satisfied. And then once they've written their numbers down, I'll say, does somebody want to kind of share your perspective on that? And we'll let a few different people share their perspective. And I'll say to them, now, if you heard something really interesting and you want to change your answer, just go ahead and erase it or cross it out and revise your answer. I just want you to be comfortable with your answer after we've had a little discussion. Now let's move on to the next outcome. So they've had the benefit of hearing from each other, but we haven't forced a single decision. Then you have them hand in their sheets at the end of the session. So if you're in a trade show and you've got 8 companies represented, guess what? You've got 8 preference interviews represented on this. So you'll get a lot of data in very short order. So that's interviewing multiple companies at the same time. Questions on that one at all? Okay, now we're going to go on to number 5, conducting discovery interviews in a different language. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, interview in a different, hopefully this works, language. Yep, there we go. Let me click on this and it will, better actually click it. So here's what you do. This is more a mechanical thing, well, somewhat mechanical. what you'll do is you'll go up here. There's a little gear. I'll show you this in real time in a minute. There's a little gear. That's where your settings are, okay? And when you hit that, you'll hit the language and language converter. And what you're trying to do is change all the stuff over on the left here to the quote unquote proper language, okay? Now, let me go and show you in the software because it's kind of hard to see. Let's go over here and we'll go do an interview and let's pick one, Taobao, oh, Alibaba, that's in China. Let's go there. So we'll do that. Now you're doing an interview in China and they're going, what's all this stuff? Those are funny looking characters there, right? So now you obviously need to have some colleagues who speak Chinese. And in fact, you need your note taker and your moderator speaking Chinese. But what they'll do is they click on this gear, they'll hit language, hit activate language converter. And now there's a couple of things you can do. If you just want to change these words, even in the US, maybe we don't want to use the word problems. Maybe challenges is better, or issues. Sometimes we don't like the word problems. Okay, you can do that. That's fine. But if you want to make it easy on yourself, just come here, hit the simplified Chinese. Did I do that okay, everybody? Anybody see any misspellings?
Looks right to me, Dan.
Okay. Looks good? All right, good. We'll save that one then. And by the way, if your colleagues go, that's not right, that character should be different, but they can do that too. So I'm going to save that, and then you just simply X out of here. Now, obviously, when you're doing your interview, somebody better know how to speak, how to type in simplified Chinese, right? And so that's what they would be doing. That's easy to do with the software. So back to, that's the mechanics of this. Back to the methodology. So your note taker obviously needs to be able to type in the local language, and your moderator needs to converse as well, right? But the thing is, you know, one or both of these people can be working remotely. Also, if you're the English speaker, you could be remote. So here's what you do. If one or more of your colleagues does not speak local language, Dan and Scott, raise your hands, right? Then what we have them do is we have our Chinese colleagues at the end of every sticky note, just type in a few words in English, okay? And that way, Scott or I can say to our Chinese colleagues, oh, thank you. Now, so I have a question. When you say lower temperature duty, how low of the temperature would you like to go? And then off we go, okay? Now, if you do this, you know, we've had projects where, you know, at the end of the project, some sticky notes were in German, some were in Chinese, some were in English, some were in French. What you want to do is at least the outcome statements, and I like the whole, if it made it to a top pick, I like to get the whole thing translated, and then especially get the English in whatever the company language is, which is usually English, okay? All right, so that's how we handle things in different languages. We're getting near our end of the list here. Questions on the language at all? All right, so what the last one we have a Blue Help session for, what if, let's see, I'll just say no conference room. I probably should say interviewing. Yeah, there we go, okay. What if there's no conference room for your interview? Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So there are 5 options if you don't have a customer conference room. Let's walk through those one by one. This is the gold standard, right? We love to have this conference room and a projector going and the note taker and moderator up close to the front of the room and so forth. But I'll work these through here. So kind of at the lowest level, this is the least inspired. You just take your notes by hand and afterwards you put them in Blueprinter. And you know, sometimes if you're following a tradesman around a building site, this is what you end up doing, okay? So there is that. Next one is an office setting. This can work pretty nicely. Try to get a small short throw projector. What I mean by that is you could put it on his or her desk, and if they've got a wall that's literally 1.5 feet away, it'll still make a nice big image. And if you click this link, Finding and Bringing Your Own Projector, this is our latest recommendation here. And I say latest recommendation, this has been our recommendation for about 2 years, 2.5 years. Now they've upgraded the model a few times. It was much less bright and had a few deficiencies, but they keep upgrading it. And frankly, just very recently, I went out and looked at a lot of reviews and looking for something better, and I haven't found anything better. We do not get commissions on sales of these projectors. There's a website, here's an Amazon link, and you want to get a little tripod to put it on. Now, the thing that's really cool is they are getting these pocket projectors that literally will fit in your pocket, but you got to look at the lumens on those things. I haven't seen anything go over a couple hundred lumens, and this is 1,000 lumens. When they start getting pocket projectors that are maybe 500 lumens, 600 lumens, I'm going to start getting pretty serious about looking at those things. So stay tuned. We'll kind of watch those as well for you. Now, so that's the office setting. The third one is laptop viewing. So what if there's no wall to project on? Maybe you're in a busy restaurant kitchen or a building site. If there is a flat surface like a counter or a desktop, you go ahead and put your laptop screen. That is your screen. The chef is going to be looking at your screen. If you end up doing this very much, get a little wireless keyboard and have your note taker off to the side. And that way you can have 1 or 2 people looking at the screen fairly effectively. So that's the third one. Now, remote interviews, we talked about this quite a bit. These are really effective, you know. The customer can just go ahead and display their laptop in a conference room. You get a web conference going. These are actually working really well, and they're getting more and more popular. Now, here's a little twist on this one. I don't know if I've got this. Oh, here we go. What if the customers won't even allow a laptop in the conference room for security reasons? So it doesn't have to be pandemic induced. Like Samsung, at least this used to be the case, they would not let their suppliers in with any kind of electronic gear, cameras, laptops, you name it. So what you do, you check your laptop and your phone at the front desk. You waltz in there. You ask the customer to hook up his or her computer to the projector in the conference room, and you give them the URL for, you've actually emailed them the URL for your web conference, and your note taker is back at the home office. So there's no electronic gear in the Samsung conference room. You do a perfectly fine interview that way. And then hotel conference rooms. This is where if you've got busy nurses, construction workers, and so forth, find out where when their shift ends. Like we would time ours, so when the nurses would come off the midnight shift or the day shift, they could come right over to a nearby hotel. That's when you want to have a lot of food and maybe have prizes or gifts, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's no conference room setting. And let me see if there's any questions on that before I go to the one that does not have a Blue Help section, but still might.
I'll throw out one thing, Dan, I've seen folks do if there's no conference room. It's kind of similar to your look over the laptop screen, but they'll hop on Zoom or Teams or whatever, even if they're in the same room together. As long as you can get on internet, you know, you can still be in the same room. I've seen that done as well as a substitute for a screen.
That's a really good point. You could literally be in the lobby, the guest lobby of a corporation, and you could have 3 or 4 people sitting in comfortable lobby chairs, each looking at their laptop, seeing the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, and you know, that's interesting, Scott, because now with our software, as you're working in here, you know, we used to have to keep hitting save buttons all the time, but there's no more save buttons because this is constantly being sent up to the cloud. So if you were on internet, let's say you brought your phone hotspot or something, you know, when you're typing, everybody is seeing the same thing coming through just like a second or less after you. So that's a really good point. Very effective to be doing that. Cool. All right. The last thing I have, again, no Blue Help on this one that we have at least created yet, but what if the customer is coming to your place? And it could be for a number of reasons. Maybe you're having them come and you're going to give them a tour of your manufacturing facility. Maybe you're going to give them a tour of your laboratories. Maybe you've got an innovation center. More and more companies are building these beautiful innovation centers, and they bring customers to their innovation center and show them all the things that could be done. Maybe you're having an innovation day and you're bringing lots of customers in at the same time to your place. So So basically what I'm saying is instead of you going to the customer, they're coming to us. So some downsides, they will have to travel, so you have to convince them to do that. But if you're already doing it anyway, then that's not really a big downside, right? They might not bring as many people, and they certainly can't spontaneously go, oh, we need Joe for this conversation and run down the hall. So those are some reasons why it doesn't happen as often. But there's some upsides. First of all, you don't have to travel, which is nice. You can have any of your people there, very powerful. And also we find oftentimes when the customers come to our place, they tend to let their hair down a little bit more. They're kind of like off the, you know, the location, the facility there. And they may give you more information. They may be more relaxed, especially if you've been showing them things and doing tours. There's this reciprocity. You've been giving a lot of stuff. Now you want to know what their needs are. So here's the other cool part, though. If you do this at an innovation center at your place, set up an amazing conference room for this. We're talking about a huge LCD screen on the wall. We're talking about exceedingly comfortable chairs and a beautiful surrounding and a really large area to bring in fantastic food, you know? You can make this thing really, really nice and bring people in and do your interviews. And now, what if you're bringing in a lot of people? We've had clients who they're bringing in 60, 80 people on a special innovation day. Lots of customers are coming in. We've had them. They have an agenda for all day long. There's some speechifying, there's this, there's that, and so forth. And one of the events is they break these people out into 4 or 6 discovery rooms. Maybe they have different topics, and they're all sharing information. Not every industry would abide by this, but it's amazing how some will. And that's another kind of variation of bringing the customer to your place. All right, well, that took us about a half an hour, about what we had planned. So 2 questions. First, do you have any questions on these things we've covered or any other special situations you can think of? And then the other question is there anything else on your mind that Scott and I can maybe be helpful, you know, thinking through with you together? So I'll be quiet for a few seconds and we'll see if we've got anybody who's got anything for us. We may have answered all their questions, Scott. Everything that could be answered. You know, we're just delighted. You know, we don't have any expectations. We're just delighted that you guys are coming here. Gives us a chance to kind of share with you latest things we've heard.
Dan, we have a question in chat.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hear it.
Let's see. What about the ad hoc customer run into, like the next seat on the plane?
Oh, that's interesting. So if I do that, you know, I think I would, you jump in, Scott, because this is really, you know, kind of off the cuff here a little bit. If I ran into a customer, you know, on a plane, I think what I would do is I would be a fascinating conversationalist. You know, the definition of a fascinating conversationalist is somebody who listens to you. That's a fascinating conversationalist. That's what I would be. And I would ask them, you know, how things are going, you know, what's happening. And then I would, you know, tell me more about your business, you know, what are you guys struggling with? How are things going? Just really be fascinated by them and be very interested in. And if I got some hard information, I would definitely put it in a blueprint. I'd go back and I'd open my blueprinter file and I'd load it in. But you know what I think I would do? I think maybe even more important than that, I think I would use that opportunity to try to set up a discovery interview. I'd say, you know, we just got started. We're already landing in Memphis here. But boy, it sounds like there's stuff here that's happening. I would like to know more because maybe my company can help you with that. Would you want to do something like this? I'll send you some information. Oh, yeah. And then I'd probably try to set up at least a web conference discovery interview. Anything to add to that, Scott?
I think the key to that, I think you've got a couple ways you look at it. One is, maybe I'll just learn whatever I can, in which case I might ask permission. Hey, do you mind if I pull out a notepad, just take a couple notes? This is really interesting. I don't want to miss anything. The next is what you described is, hey, you really want to take this to the next level and have a a legitimate, normal interview. In which case, I think you just want to spend, in that case, you want to spend enough time, you know, developing that relationship so it doesn't seem weird. I'm just thinking as I go, making it up as I go along. You know, but hey, would you mind if we connect on LinkedIn? I think professionally we might have some common interests or something. Really, you just want the ability to find them later. So I think you either grab what you can on a notepad, or if you're going to go for the discovery interview, you know, you spend a little more time in conversation, you know, so it doesn't seem weird to ask for that contact information at some point. Or you're really not asking, maybe asking for contact information. Should, you know, could we connect on LinkedIn? That, to me, that just seems like a very non-threatening way, maybe. I don't know.
Be interested in them and their job and what they're facing, right? Mm-hmm. We had, you know, it's interesting. I had somebody say, oh, we love using discovery interviews in trade shows. I said, really? So you have a big booth then? And you said, no, we don't use your software. Oh, okay. Well, how do you do it? Oh, he said, it's easy. You know, they're walking down the aisle, coming closer to our booth. And then I just say, well, tell me a little bit about your company. And then I ask them current state questions. And then after they're feeling pretty good, I'm listening really hard. I say, well, you guys facing any challenges, you know, in this industry today? How's it looking? Then those are my problems, right? And then after a little bit, I said, well, what would your ideal world look like then? Now I'm on the green sticky notes, okay? Now, in this case, he wasn't really writing them down, but he was just fascinated. And he immediately afterwards went and recorded them on the blueprinting discovery sticky notes, you know. But here's what he pointed out, because, you know, we used to grab them by their collars and press their faces against the board and show them all the glories of our product. He said, but this is much, much better to be going through those first 3 steps of blueprinting. So you can use it in some pretty creative ways. Excellent. Any other question? Anything else in chat or anybody? I should have said this. Feel free to unmute yourself also and just ask a question if you'd like. And I'll wait a few more seconds.
Yeah, I've got a question actually about organizing preference interviews with, it's a charter customer who is quite a popular customer. And they're going to get a lot of people from the same company, from different divisions of the same company. And, you know, we're kind of trying to prioritize. So once we've got them lined up, and this is happening right now, for an interview, we've got to really be careful who runs the interview and a little bit from which perspective, because we can pull together the top picks from various interviews and kind of tune it to suit. And if you're looking into one particular aspect of their business,
yes,
a team that are going to be asked by another group of people that they can kind of reach of top picks and the
yes
interview can be kind of tailored. And in this, you're going to maybe say thanks for that, great, we've learned a lot. Actually, maybe another group of people from our company that need to run this again. And I don't know how you manage that really.
Well, it's a great question, Tom. I'm going to step back, and this may not be appropriate, but I'll tell you what some of our clients have done. Sometimes, now I know you said preference interview, but sometimes they'll even start with a discovery interview at a high level, okay? And what they'll do is they'll hear all kinds of needs, and they may find at that point they need to break the project scope down. We had a client who was making basically commodity products, but as it turned out, once they had this high-level interview, there was another topic which became a sub-discovery interview that was really on the topic of invoicing. There's another one on, you know, maintenance of the product. There was another one on something else, right? So they actually did this kind of a hierarchical thing. They started with top management, then they had almost think of those little committees, right? The committees with some people from the supplier and some from the customer. And then those committees would do their diverging discovery, and then they would each converge on their preference interviews. And then what they would do is they'd report back to top management on a regular basis, showing them their progress. And of course, top management just loved this. They were learning all kinds of things about things that had to be fixed within their own company, and the supplier is helping. It's like, woo. So follow through is really important. So you started though mentioning preference interviews. So I think what I might do in that case is I might say, hey, there are multiple problems we can work on. And it may be, and you have to answer this, but it may be better, Mr. Customer, for us to break this down into a series of smaller projects that we can work on, kind of bite-sized, and then really do a good job instead of one really high-level, kind of abstract one where it doesn't let us sink our teeth into it. And if they let you do that, then you might break it down, the scope, into several different things. Let me check to see, is that something that might work in this case?
Yeah, I mean, if we segment down and then you get into kind of particular groups of discussion, it kind of loops back to the same guy. So the research team, it always ends up the same names come up as being, you need to speak to him and this guy's team. Mm-hmm. So if you're on a valve side or a pump side or whatever, it ends up.
So yeah, I'm with you now. Okay, that's really helpful. So here's what I would do then. I would not subject them to different interviews based upon our products, but I might subject them to, or ask them to do different interviews based upon different jobs to be done. So here's the difference. If you're talking about fluid control of yada, 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 that's the job to be done. Their job to be done is fluid control in this, situation. And there are multiple products from your company, valves and pumps and, whatever, that might fall within that scope. Then here's what I would do. I would do one interview on their job to be done. And then what I would do is I would go into the software and I would do some save as, or I'd do some importing, and I'd move the valve division got interview, the pump division got that interview, and so forth. The fittings interview got that interview. So everybody can work on it, and hopefully you work together a little bit. So I think the key on it is set your scope for the preference interview around the customer's job to be done. Now, if they've got the same people who are doing 3 different jobs to be done, you can probably get away with saying, well, obviously, if we mishmash your 3 jobs to be done and try one interview, you're not going to be able to help us very much. So let's have 3 different interviews. I think they'll let you do that. What they won't want you to do is have to tell the valve guys the same thing they told the fittings guys, the same thing they told the pump guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of framing it, actually. So sort of map out that job and then, yeah, that makes sense. I could go with that.
Yep. And if you get into that on the specifics of that job to be done, just let Scott or me know, and we'll kind of be glad to kick it around with you too, okay?
Yep. No, that sounds good.
Excellent question. Yeah, very good question. Thank you for that, Tom. Any other questions we've got? All right. Well, listen, we really appreciate you guys coming. Tell your friends and colleagues to join us every Monday morning. It's a great way to get some coffee going, slowly waking up as we ramble on. We wish you a really good rest of the Monday. Hey, Scott, real quickly, let's talk about what we have the next one coming up. I'll go back to the AIM Institute here. We go to training, blueprinting training, Monday masterclass. All I know is you're doing the next one, Scott. How about that? Huh? Oh, wonderful. Scott is the master on jobs to be done. He's written a book on it. Seriously, a masterful piece called The Statue in the Stone. He is the existing guru. He didn't start it. Tony Allwood and Clayton Christian started, but I think Scott's taken it farther than anyone else. So make sure you join us Monday, October 12th. You use the word practical. You want to say why you use that word, Scott?
Sure. Jobs to be done. It's such a deep pool. If you're not careful, and I fall into this myself, I can fall into this, this hole of all the depths of the theory and stuff. But for this particular session, we're going to really talk about making it practical for executing your blueprinting projects, what you need to know.
This will be a good tie-in with what Tom was asking about. What's the customer's job to be done? The more we find we can think about our interviews in terms of the customer's job to be done and what are the outcomes that are causing imperfections in that job to be done that we can improve. Man, once we lock onto that way of thinking, the world is much easier to improve. All right, thanks, Scott. Thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of the Monday. As always, if you've got questions, don't wait till a Monday. Just drop us a line, and we're glad to help whenever we can. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good Monday.
Have a great week, everybody.